Imagine your brain sitting in the middle of your body like a stressed-out air traffic controller, and every time you eat sugar, it flips switches, fires alarms, and lights up your nerves like a holiday parade. Researchers at Princeton found that lab rats chose sugar over cocaine, which means your innocent morning muffin is hitting your reward system harder than you'd ever guess. Now picture what happens when you suddenly stop feeding your brain that sweet fuel. It reacts the way your phone does when it hits 1% battery, panicked, glitchy, and desperate for a charge. Your dopamine crashes, your cravings flare, and your whole body starts hunting sugar like it's misplaced oxygen. What makes it worse is that all this chaos isn't drama. It's your neural wiring resisting change. But give your brain just 21 days, and that same wiring can rebuild itself into the clearest, calmest version of you. Sugar doesn't just mess with your cravings, it slowly bruises your brain, weakening memory, mood, and focus over time. Neuroscientists call it neuroinflammation, but you feel it as foggy mornings, short tempers, and a mind that keeps buffering like a weak Wi-Fi signal. Your body tries to keep up, but the symptoms stack fast. The good news is that your brain can heal far quicker than you think, and in the first few days of quitting sugar, that healing begins in surprisingly dramatic ways. Day 1 to 2. The dopamine collapse begins. The first 2 days without sugar hit your brain like an unexpected power outage. For years, sugar has acted as your brain's favorite shortcut to dopamine, firing your reward circuits the same way nicotine and fast gambling do. A 2013 Princeton study showed that rats experiencing sugar withdrawal became restless, anxious, and unusually agitated. An almost perfect mirror of what many humans feel in the opening days. The biology is simple. The ventral tegmental area stops receiving its usual dopamine spike. The nucleus accumbens stops lighting up, and your emotional balance wobbles like a table missing a leg. In real life, you may feel irritated for no reason, frustrated by tiny inconveniences, or oddly empty like someone turned down the brightness of your internal world. But this early crash is also the brain's signal that it has started recalibrating. The short-term benefit emerges faster than you'd expect. Your brain begins breaking its automatic sugar equals reward loop, paving the way for true control. Day 3 to 4. Cravings, cortisol, and the panic phase. By day 3, the brain shifts from confusion to mild panic. Without its quick dopamine fuel, your stress system kicks into overdrive, increasing cortisol levels and triggering irritability, emotional sensitivity, and a persistent itch for something sweet. Harvard research has shown that sugar stimulates dopamine up to 50% more than certain natural rewards, which means removing it can feel like your inner chemistry is rebelling. Many people report tightness in the chest, restlessness, or the urge to snack, even if they're not hungry. Think of your brain like a GPS that suddenly loses signal. It keeps recalculating, searching for sugar as if it's searching for a lost landmark. The good news is that this storm means your reward pathways are attempting to normalize. The value here, pushing through this phase strengthens your future impulse control. Day 5 to 7. The fog week. Metabolic shift plus gut-brain turbulence. As the first week closes, your body begins a deeper transformation, one that often feels worse before it feels better. Your brain relies heavily on glucose, so when sugar intake drops, you experience temporary mental fog, slower recall, and less sharpness. It's not a failure, it's an adaptation. Your brain is switching from high-voltage bursts to a more stable energy form. Meanwhile, your gut microbiome starts its own rebellion. Sugar-feeding bacteria die off, releasing compounds that create bloating, mood dips, and even sadness. Because 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut, this microbial shift affects your emotions directly. Studies from the American Gut Project highlight how dietary sugar impacts microbial diversity and how quickly it improves when sugar is removed. But inside this discomfort lies an early reward. Inflammation markers begin dropping, and your brain's electrical activity becomes more stable. The big takeaway: your brain is detoxing, even if the process feels messy. Day 8 to 14. The neural reset. Clarity emerging from chaos. By the second week, something quietly remarkable begins happening inside your brain. Something most people never push far enough to experience. This is the phase scientists often refer to as the neural reset, because your dopamine receptors, which sugar has been overstimulating for years, finally begin repairing themselves. The process is called dopaminergic receptor upregulation, but all it really means is that your brain is relearning how to feel pleasure without needing a sugar-level dopamine blast every few hours. Studies from Yale and the University of Zurich show that when people reduce added sugars, the amygdala, your emotional alarm system, becomes less reactive. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for impulse control and decision-making, starts functioning more effectively. It's like the emotional toddler inside your head finally stops screaming, allowing the adult in the room to take over again. Emotionally, this change is subtle but noticeable. The mood swings that hit you like little thunderstorms last week now feel more like light showers. Still annoying, but manageable. The mental fog that made your brain feel like an old TV struggling to find a signal begins to lift. Some mornings you wake up feeling slightly lighter, thinking, okay, my brain isn't attacking me today. Not perfect, but better. Cravings also shift during this period. They don't vanish, but they lose their urgency. What used to feel like an emergency siren now sounds more like background static. The sugar voice that yelled, "Eat something sweet or we perish," becomes a quiet mumble. Still there, but far easier to ignore. This happens because the nucleus accumbens, your brain's reward hub, stops firing excessively and begins normalizing its response to triggers like stress or boredom. A 2018 Nature Communications study found that reducing sugar intake physically alters the brain's reward pathways, lowering their baseline activation and increasing sensitivity to everyday rewards. In simple terms, your brain stops acting like sugar is the only source of happiness in the universe. Meanwhile, your HPA axis, the system managing stress hormones, starts stabilizing. Cortisol spikes become less severe, and your emotional reactions feel less explosive. You might suddenly realize you're a little more patient, or at least patient enough not to yell at someone chewing loudly. Cognitively, this week feels like someone wiped fingerprints off your mental glasses. Words come easier, your memory sharpens slightly, and tasks feel less overwhelming. You find your keys without turning your house upside down. The fog doesn't disappear completely, but it breaks in clear flashes, like sunlight between clouds. Neuroinflammation also begins to drop. Sugar activates microglia, immune cells in your brain, that sometimes behave like firefighters who love gasoline. When sugar is removed, these cells calm down, leading to clearer thinking and fewer mental glitches. This reduction in microglial activity is one reason people start feeling mentally sharper during this phase. Your insulin sensitivity improves too. Stable insulin means your neurons receive steady energy rather than swinging between overcaffeinated squirrel and low battery warning. This stability is why many people feel their mental load lightened around this time. Your circadian rhythm quietly repairs itself as well. With sugar no longer disrupting melatonin, sleep becomes deeper and more consistent. You may still wake up groggy, but you feel a bit more refreshed than before. Even a 5–10% improvement feels huge when your brain has been running on chaos for years. Then comes one of the most encouraging shifts, the dopamine rebound effect. This is when ordinary things, music, sunlight, checking off a task, start feeling good again. Without sugar hijacking your reward system, your brain reconnects with natural sources of joy. As one researcher described it, pleasure returns to its natural scale. By the end of days 8 to 14, the hardest internal battles are behind you. Your brain is no longer clinging to old sugar-driven pathways. It's actively building new ones, pathways that support focus instead of distraction, calm instead of chaos, regulation instead of emotional volatility, pathways that feel like you're slowly coming back to yourself. And that is the true value of this phase. Genuine clarity becomes possible, not because you've forced yourself to be strong, but because your brain is finally biologically capable of functioning without the noise. Day 15 to 17. Willpower circuits strengthen. Prefrontal cortex activation. Midway through the third week, the commander of your mind, the prefrontal cortex, begins waking up. This region is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and long-term thinking. When sugar dominates your diet, this region becomes sluggish. When sugar is removed, it regains its strength. One study in Nature Neuroscience showed that reducing added sugars improves prefrontal activation in just weeks. In real life, you may feel calmer when walking past snacks, more in control when stress hits, or proud of small wins you didn't value before. Think of your PFC reclaiming the driver's seat after years of letting cravings hold the wheel. The benefit? Your discipline becomes a skill, not a struggle. Day 18 to 19. Cognitive restoration. Memory, mood, and sleep rebuild. This stage is where people start saying, "I didn't know I could feel this clear." Neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and serotonin stabilize, improving memory and mental focus. The hippocampus, your brain's learning center, gets relief from sugar-induced inflammation. Sleep becomes deeper because cortisol normalizes and melatonin production stops being disrupted. You might find yourself remembering conversations more accurately, finishing tasks without losing track, or feeling more emotionally stable. Creativity returns. Your mind feels less noisy. The transformation is subtle but powerful, like upgrading from foggy glasses to clean lenses. The value? Your mind begins operating the way it was designed to. Day 20 to 21. The breakthrough brain. Neuroplasticity takes over. By the final days of your 21-day journey, your brain reaches a new equilibrium. It's no longer dependent on the sugar roller coaster. It runs on smoother metabolic fuel, relying more on steady glucose and fat energy levels. Neuroplasticity accelerates. Your brain forms new pathways that associate pleasure with real rewards: movement, sleep, accomplishment, connection. Cravings are minimal, focus is stronger, your emotional world feels balanced instead of reactive. Many people describe this stage as coming back online or finally feeling like myself again. The benefit is profound. In 21 days, your brain has not just survived without sugar, it has rebuilt itself into a sharper, calmer, more resilient version of you. And that's the true value of this phase. For the first time in years, genuine clarity comes within reach, not because you forced yourself to be strong, but because your brain is finally biologically capable of operating without chaos. Aha! 21 days is all it takes for your brain to shift from craving chaos to craving clarity. You've seen how the fog lifts, how the mood swings fade, and how your mind begins running on a cleaner kind of power. That transformation isn't luck, it's biology finally working in your favor. And if your brain can change this much in 3 weeks, imagine what the next 3 months could look like. The choice starts with one small decision today. Tell me in the comments whether you're ready to try this 21-day reset for yourself. Your story might be the reason someone else finally takes the first step. If this video helped you understand your brain a little better, tap like and subscribe for more science-backed motivation. And remember, sometimes the sweetest victory is simply feeling like yourself again.